She Rides Shotgun is a Western crime thriller following Nate McCluskey, played by Taron Egerton. He's an ex-con who's on the run from both the law and a violent criminal organization he used to be involved with. Because of how dangerous and unstable they are, he picks up his estranged 11-year-old daughter, Polly, out of fear for her safety. The two of them go rogue and are forced to navigate a series of threats from this organization and a compromised police force, all while trying to build a connection neither of them knows how to approach. So this is a chase film based on the book by the same name. Its main focus is on the difficulties of preserving the innocence of childhood. We follow a character who is forced to drag his daughter down a dangerous road in order to save her life. Nate has to walk the line of doing what he can to arm and protect his daughter from the horrors of the world without allowing them to harden or scar her. Polly's most recognizable quality is her innocence, and the movie's tension revolves around Nathan's ability to protect that, even when the situation that they're in makes that seem impossible. You can also sense a bit of tension from these characters in how they navigate their relationship. They are family, and they seem to have an obligation to each other, but they just don't really know each other. These characters both wear emotional armor, likely from the fear of getting too attached under such dire circumstances. But of course, they build chemistry over the course of their journey, which naturally draws affection from them. And the question that hovers over us is, how much does Nate actually love his daughter? There's a shroud of ambiguity there. He will sometimes do things that reflect genuine compassion, coupled with indications that perhaps he does not care that much about her. He occasionally treats her like a pet. Easily the best part of this movie was Taron Egerton. Seeing him in this very gritty role and how he perfectly embodies a hardened crook will leave you forgetting any doubts you had in him, and instead surprise you that he was ever able to play less serious characters. He fills these shoes very well, and he definitely deserves more roles like this. Polly, played by Anna Sophia Hedger, is mostly good, but a bit of a mixed bag. At times, she will capture your heart and leave you astounded by her portrayal. In other times, you will think, wait, isn't this kid supposed to be 11 years old? The way the movie eventually tries to depict her as hardened to stone by the world around her sometimes feels like it's not feasibly depicting her as an 11-year-old. She sometimes delivers lines with a very mature sense of stoicism and composure, making her feel like she's at least 16. When the movie actually treats her like a little kid, she really shines because for her, the story is really heartbreaking. It's a saddening depiction of how the innocence of childhood is impacted by violence and greed. There's a lot of lore behind Nate and his history with this organization that the movie gives us little tastes of. It takes its time placing puzzle pieces that eventually make up a better picture of what his past looks like. So nothing is overly expositional. The movie mostly does a good job of leaving us uninformed to create intrigue, but it does sometimes feel like it's leaving us in the dark on key aspects of our protagonist. About halfway through, it ends up switching from being more character-focused to being plot-focused. This pivot did make the story much more interesting because it was otherwise kind of generic. They're just on the run from the law, going through the motions of trying to lay low, but occasionally running into trouble that would disrupt Nate's preservation of Polly's innocence. Halfway through is when the movie shifts trajectory. At that point, Nate and Polly start talking about their bigger picture, and their story intersects with another supporting characters. At this point, you will likely think, okay, now we are getting somewhere. That's all to say that the whole first half had an overarching subject behind it, keeping it above water, but on paper, it was just kind of uninteresting and didn't really set itself up for the second half very well. At this point, we are supposed to care more about a deeper criminal network that we don't see the full scale of. Instead, we get a lot of very shallow lip service. They all talk about how deep and dark it is rather than showing us more than one scene that hardly scratches the surface. It hardly gives us a taste of how vicious these guys allegedly are, and we never see the business side that everything revolves around. And the aforementioned supporting character's involvement feels forced. There was definitely more room for him to influence the plot before and after the little mid-movie pocket where they decided to make him relevant for a little bit. This movie is also sometimes a little bit cheeky in the way that characters talk about this criminal organization and the Kingpin. Characters will say things like, oh, he's the god of Slaptown. He's a devil with eyes and ears everywhere. The dialogue used would fit really well in something like John Wick because they've built the world around this very regal take on contemporary Gothic characters, but this movie is a Western drama. It feels urban and realistic, so these very theatrical remarks make the script feel like it's a bit confused about the esteem that these characters should be viewed with. That is especially true when you see the head honcho. And again, the ambiguity and the tension between characters is what carries the movie through the first half, but it doesn't always feel purposeful. There is a difference between ambiguity being created by walking the line with opposing misdirections versus ambiguity being created by a lack of consideration. And sometimes it feels like the latter is the case here. Rather than giving these characters conflicting feelings that give us the idea that they are apprehensive to one another, it sometimes just feels like the ambiguity is made by just not fleshing out the characters very much. It just sometimes feels a little bit lazy. The ending was fitting, though the falling actions leading up to that were not very memorable. It culminates exactly how you'd expect an action thriller to, but the final moment does circle back to what the movie was initially imparting, and it at least does the main characters justice. So overall, this movie was just fine. Its ideas and themes are solid, as are the performances, but when it comes time for the plot to grab hold of us, the movie just doesn't have much to rope you in with, and it's kind of just unoriginal. This movie is just fine as a streaming watch. I don't think you should rush to the theater for it. You could put it on after work one night as opposed to having a whole family movie night, but don't expect this one to be one that you'll remember in a couple years. Thanks for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my review of Weapons.